Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Anim Klesha. So in this video we are gonna see No Game No Life Volume 4 Chapter 1 Part 3. So let's get into it. Now changing location, the Eastern Union capital Kanagari, similar to Alkia's King City, the representative of the Beast lives in Miko's shrine. The courtyard of the central edifice. It was filled with a lavish natural landscape, and where there were gaps, it was painted with either red or the black. One cannot help but think that it was a Japanese garden. This area was normally prohibited to unrelated people and the like. However, at that moment, there was a mass of people gathered next to the sacred pond. Miko-sama, what is love? Tell us, Miko-sama. The one who was asking these questions seriously had a head of the black hairs and a black eyes. He was a teenager who wore the shirt with humanity on it. Sitting on his lap was a girl with the white hair and the red eyes. They were the king and the queen of Alkia, the sole representatives of the humanity, Sora and Shiro. The truth behind the crowd was that those two were petting several species of the beast Kinonomi girls while making delicate and charming sounds. In addition, there was a long queue of Kinonomi's girls looking on their faces which were like bursting with envy. What should I say? Even though there is so much to say. Speaking with a voice that sounded like wind chimes was a woman who was sitting on the opposite side of the game board. No one knew her real name, and she was a golden fox with two lush tails. She was the beast representative who had the total authority over the race, Miko. I have been meaning to ask the two of you, what on earth is in your heads? The three people were in the middle of a game called Corn Sparrow. It was a unique traditional game of the Eastern Union. Although it has some common aspects with the Mahjong, it was essentially a completely different game. What? Okay, I win again. This game is pretty interesting. They were petting the countless beast girls while asking the flippant questions of what love was. Yet they had easily mastered this game, which they had just seen for the first time and heard the rules only a few tens of minutes ago. In that very short period of time, they had formulated strategies that will maximize in efficiency and countless arrangements, and even worked out a few ways to cheat. But that was not the biggest issue. Miko had mixed feelings and smiled bitterly while she sighed. How the heck did you cheat? Escape my notice. Tell me. Even though she was depending on her five senses, Miko could not perceive the slightest of the flaws in their movements. Sora smiled with a hippie while replying her. Who? You are going as far as to say that we cheated? How disgraceful. But Shiro did memorize all the cards that were facing down while tracing their positions, and I only pretended to shuffle so that I could control the cards that Shiro might need. This isn't what you call a cheat. Indeed, one of the two reasons why that did not count, did not deemed as a cheat was that those two did not see the opponent's card at all, and they were only speculating what was in each other's hand. Also, Miko did the same, so we are in the same boat. The second reason was that she still lost to them under the same conditions. They had only chatted with her for a while, yet they had already beaten her in the game that she was playing for over 50 years. Her opponent had faced her directly with the strength to win and had exceeded her in terms of points. There was nothing she could do about that. She had been so thoroughly defeated, yet she felt overjoyed. Miko's cheeks perked up as she forced a smile, while Sora began to state his demands. Alright, as pledged to the odds, I may request of three things from you. No problems there, right? Facing the helplessly smiling Miko, Sora continued his speech. Firstly, I ask you to take into account the interest of the both nations and to objectively create a tax table in accordance with the import and export of different goods. Compared to Alkia, the Eastern Union knew their mainland resources like the back of their hands. That should have been the obvious enough. Then, the only person who could actually evaluate the gap between the two countries' national strength and also to strive to meet the interest of the both countries, both sides, was Miko, the sole representative of the Eastern Union. There was not a more appropriate candidate around, since it is to implicitly take into the account the interest of the both countries. The benefit cannot go unilaterally to the Eastern Union. Miko admired in her heart the fact that there were never any holes in their plans. But, in other words, you guys are throwing all your work onto me once again. In the past half a month, Sora and Shiro were really hard at work. They visited Miko's residence every day and bet the interest of both countries in games. Indeed, they were remarkably efficient in their work. They had been victorious over Miko in every single game. If you were to overlook how they had threw all their substantial workload onto the Miko, it was an impeccable feat. Specialized work should be assigned to those who specialize in it. Since Miko-sama only spent half a century to unite this huge country, I believe in your abilities. Upon hearing how easily Sora replied to her, Miko laughed while scratching her hair. The federal system used by the two combined nations. It seemed to be the reference of their original world, United States of America. This move was unprecedented and thus involved numerous obstacles which needed solutions and compromises to be made. The friction decided the two countries also needed to be reduced to a minimum. So they decided to throw all of these things to Miko to get resolved. In truth, that was the most correct approach. Although Sora and Shiro were super gamers, they were no politicians. However, Miko's first smile was for a different reason. As of that day, she had attempted to win against Sora and Shiro several times and, of course, she failed. This time, she thought that she would be able to win with a game they had never seen before, but she still suffered a beautiful defeat. In addition, she had used a lot of tricks hoping to win some benefits for the Eastern Union, but the result was that she was completely failed for the trick and to win against them. However, to formulate the policy in this way, as Sora and Shiro had said, it would be thoroughly meet the interest of both countries. However, be it Alkia or Eastern Union, there would be some sort of short-term losses, but the long-term benefits will definitely be reaped on both sides. Looking at the records of these documented policies, Miko could not help but sigh. She had no complaints. However, since she was always trying to deceive these two with cheats, she began to feel a little guilty. The problem lay with their second request, which was incidentally, okay, the second request is as usual. Let us stroke Miko-sama. Stroke. Indeed, they would senselessly bet for the right to stroke Miko every time before starting the game. Well, since you are seriously considering the government policies, I'll let you have a touch. Miko sighed while looking at the stack of documents that was constantly piling up. Then she slowly swung her two golden tails over to them to let them touch. Okay, it's here. Let's go, Shiro. Today we must definitely make Miko mourn. With shining eyes, Sora and Shiro pounced onto Miko. Miko laughed bitterly while she thought. The Berwished, who were the exceeds 14th ranked race, they could exceed the limits of their body's physical capacities. This was naturally impossible for humans to achieve, and needless to say, it defied the law of physics. The way they used to make this possible was to rely on the elementals within their body. All life in this world had some amount of elementals within their bodies. There were elemental corridors to retain strength or to make connections that were like nerves, and the external elemental magic was what determined the ranks. As the 14th rank, the Werebeast had a meager connection and were thus incapable of using magic. But as for the elementals within each body, the only race who would be unconscious to their use was humanity. The Werebeast utilized the strength of their body elementals to achieve the heights the human would be amazed at. A good example would be the bad blood which was used by the Izuna and the Miko. Okay. By controlling their elementals within their body, they could enhance the performance of their body and cast the field of self destruction. That was the skill of the Werebeast. But the price paid for the circulating elementals through their bodies was a special phenomenon that endlessly causes disorders. And the specific phenomenon had a greater impact depending on how weak the body of the werebeast is. The result on the werebeast race was chronic disorders of the elementals within one's body, especially seen in women and children, which was followed by discomfort. It was not easy to solve this problem alone. After saying so much, what was trying to be conveyed was fluffy, fluffy, pet, pet, hee hee. Under Shiro's touch, Miko almost let out an itchy sound but managed to keep it in by dispersing her attention. Sora and Shiro, those two techniques of leading around the elementals within her body was abnormally clever. Humanity should not be able to see the elementals though. Even if they were from another world, the technique to lead around the elementals belonged to the field of high magic. And yet those two were. Right there. The reaction was instantaneously captured with the touch they had substantially leaded around the elementals. The result was inadvertently the elimination of the chronic disorder in the beast due to the disorder in their body's elementals. This is, how would you call it? Probably an exceedingly charismatic measure. It's only natural that this would attract such a long queue, right? What else? You did say that you have the 3 requests today. Ah, because of the accurate touch, she almost let out an itchy sound. Miko forcibly repressed it and bet on the opportunity to ask the two of them a question. It's about time to start it, right? Of course, I think it has something to do with this situation, right? She looked at Sora Shiro, who were being hugged by the werebeast girls who were strangers to them, while they alternated between petting the crowd. To this point, Miko had pretty much dying to say that, but first putting that aside. The two of them had their mouths and nose covers and each wrapped with the towel that seemed to be borrowed from Izuna. Sora was wearing what looked like a cat ears and Shiro was wearing rabbit ears. Jibril stood behind them and for some reason or the another she had slightly dropping dog ears on her head. Izuna stood by her side with eyes eagerly looking onto Sora and Shiro who were petting beast girls as if waiting for her turn. Miko then narrowed her eyes to look at the last person. In her line of vision was a damper girl who crouched in the corner of the room whose body was constantly shivering. Last night, after I rejected the request issued by Palm, the damper girl over there, she went all over the Kanagari to advertise the petting skills of Shiro and me. The result seemed to be the long queue of the beast girls waiting to be stroked. They had clearly covered their faces and used the space to divert others' attention while going to Miko's shrine, but the moment they stepped out and walked a little, the scenario completely changed. Sora shrugged his shoulders and laughed bitterly. She threatened us to keep this troublesome behavior until promised to rescue the damper race. Is that so? Master, this should be enough. You just use a game and bet her head and win, then chop her head off. I'm sorry, but this is an important matter that involves the survival of the entire race. A single glance by Jibril, who was emitting a dangerous aura, caused Plum to huddle in the corner and let out the cry of misery. That is, regarding my third request. Please use your status as a beast soul representative to order them that whenever we take the initiative to go out, They are not to come looking for us. If not, they'd just line up outside the main door of Izuna's house and we would be too scared to enter their line of sight that we wouldn't even touch the door and thus unable to state the original purpose of her visit. Miko looked as if she had much to say, but in order to hear what his original purpose was, she used a sharp tone and spoke. Step down. With only that sentence, the Kinonomi's girls were immediately so scared that their hair stood on the edge. Then they repeatedly bobbed their head while scrambling to escape from the shrine's garden. Moreover, Shiro was waving goodbye in the direction of their backs. That should be it. So, what was it you wanted to talk seriously about? Miko had an intolerant expression when she asked. Shora nodded solemnly in response. Yep, it's a major issue that puts both LK and Eastern Union at stake. Sora stated the topic and no longer had the usual slovenly appearance. He wore the serious expression on his face like he had encountered a problem which was extremely difficult to solve. Accordingly, Miko proceeded to sit opposite Sora. Sora said, You know the in the sea that's south of the Eastern Union? The country called Oshendo? That's our neighboring country. Of course I know about it. It's the nation of the Sirens. Sirens, the exceeds 15th rank, which was above the immunity by a single rank and below the Were Beast by a single rank. Their capital was located beneath the deep sea, and because they could only live underwater, they were not very interested in acquiring territories. They were also a race with a special ecology, and thus they have a minimal transaction with the other nation and were closed off from the rest of the world. What on earth is the purpose of bringing up the country that composed of those people? Miko stared with that question in her eyes. Sora responded with a vigorous nod. Indeed, this is something that involves them, Miko-sama. Sona inhaled deeply. Like I was saying, Miko-sama, what is love? I'll say this one more time. If you're asking for a fight, I can take you on. Miko smiled straight through her face, but she exuded an aura which looked like as if she was preparing to activate blood. Her fur turned slightly reddish and she let out a low growl. Okay guys, that's it for this chapter. We'll continue with the part 4 of the chapter 1 of the volume 4. See you guys in the next video. Goodbye. Have a good day and night, whatever it is.